'03 Ford Focus with a piston issue? Tell us what's going on, John.
No, it's the island. It runs rough at highway speeds. It misses or something, and I had the computer check it, and it said an oxygen sensor or the EGR valve, and it sounded more like that. I replaced the EGR valve less than 2 years ago, and other than that, I got AMSOIL in there. Things been running great, but it just those are the two codes that came up.
Well, if the EGR valve, now, the EGR valve can have different, they can actually have different codes. The most common on a vehicle like you have is what we would refer to as an EGR flow code. And the reason that you'd get a flow code on that is there's a tube that runs from the exhaust up to that EGR valve. And a lot of times, or in most cases, if you get an EGR code, that tube is actually plugged up. And what it does is when it does raise, in order to take, unburnt exhaust gases and reintroduce them into the intake system, there's just not sufficient flow taking place. So it generally will go ahead and set a code. Now, if you just replaced that EGR valve a couple years ago, I doubt very seriously that EGR has failed in that time period. What you're probably going to wind up finding is if you were to take that EGR valve off of the engine and you see where the exhaust port is on it, which is easy to find, it'll be the one black and probably caked up with carbon. And if you can't take like a coat hanger or a strong piece of wire and run it all the way through back into the exhaust system, it's plugged up, John. I don't know if that tube is still available from Ford. I'd almost bet money it's not. What you'd probably have to do, and I've done this in the past, I've taken a battery-operated drill and put like a coat hanger, just a piece of steel on the end of it, and stick it down into the carbon. You'll see where the carbon is all built up. And just start running the drill, and a lot of times that'll kind of beat that carbon out of the way, and you can clean that pipe up by using that method, just an old steel coat hanger, and just have it spinning, while you kind of hold it straight and run it through it, and that'll usually go ahead and clean the carbon up out of that exhaust pipe that runs up to the EGR valve. Give that a shot. Make sure that pipe is open, and if you need any more help with it, Larry at magicmechanic.com.